There's a lot of money in positioning yourself as an organization that's going to deal with haters who are in your neighborhood and haters who are around every corner and skinheads, and the rise of the KKK raised literally tens of millions of dollars based on that particular position.
This is an organization that has a massive endowment of, I think, $300 million. Much of it is kept offshore in offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and so forth. And yet they exploit people, small donors and so forth, asking for money that they don't need in order to do things that are disingenuous, that are not actually helping homosexuals, but simply attacking people who they happen to disagree with ideologically.
Founded in 1971, the Southern Poverty Law Center is a huge organization that labels itself as a champion for civil rights in America. Many people, even critics, would agree that they did good work in the early years.
The Southern Poverty Law Center is an organization that began back during the Civil Rights era, in part to protect the rights of those who were being unjustly treated. However, what we have today is an organization that, in continuing its mission, has lost sight of some of the key principles that motivated, in particular, the Southern Christian leaders, the ministers, who were fighting for our unalienable rights.
But then recently, during the 2000s, they've kind of morphed into a hate group watch. And that's essentially where all the action is now. The media will cite whatever the Southern Poverty Law Center says as gospel truth. Once you can say that, somebody's on the SPLC's hate list, and if you're a journalist for the mainstream media, then you point out, yes, this group is on the hate list for the SPLC, and this is automatically bad. This shows you what haters the group is. So that's essentially what's happening.
I have a dream.
The Southern Poverty Law Center portrays itself as following in the footsteps of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But are they correct to invoke Dr. King's legacy as they stridently advocate positions that are against the Bible?
Dr. King believed in moral absolutes. He didn't believe in the advance of moral relativism, because he understood that it was only when you have moral absolutes that you had a basis to pursue justice and equality for all. And what the Southern Poverty Law Center is doing is the direct opposite of that. They are in fact creating division by the use of moral relativism that is a direct affront to what Dr. King believed.
They are doing a profound disservice, both to the public at large and specifically to those in the charitable world or in the press or in government who need to have access to the kind of information that I believe people like us provide. That is the crux of the matter.
Critics of the Southern Poverty Law Center argue that they paint with too broad of a brush in their labeling of various groups and individuals as haters. Therefore, legitimate Christian ministries that simply hold to traditional Christian doctrine end up with the same hate label as the KKK and neo-Nazis.
The Southern Poverty Law Center currently, along with a plethora of other organizations that are advancing immorality and injustice in this land, are all part of what I call the God-hating complex.
D. James Kennedy Ministries has also been falsely placed on the SPLC's so-called hate map, but the ministry is pushing back against the slander.
On behalf of D. James Kennedy Ministries, we have filed a lawsuit in federal court in the state of Alabama. The judge took the time to write an almost 150-page ruling over the course of a year in evaluating these issues. But we believe, as we are taking this up on appeal to the 11th Circuit, that there were a number of areas where he got the issue wrong.
We've appealed that decision to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta.
Southern Poverty Law Center has the right to speak. They don't have the right to libel, slander, or defame. And there is a difference between speaking openly and honestly in the marketplace of ideas and destroying wrongfully the reputation of an innocent party.
Other defendants in the lawsuit are Amazon.com, whose Amazon Smile charity program has excluded D. James Kennedy Ministries because of the SPLC's false hate designation.
It's our opinion that Amazon and any other entity that relies on the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate map is acting irresponsibly. We believe that while they may have stood for some good things in the past, what they're doing with their hate map towards ministries like D. James Kennedy Ministries is absolutely wrong, and they should be held responsible.
Matt Staver's Liberty Counsel has also been falsely placed on the SPLC's hate map.
It is irresponsible for the Southern Poverty Law Center to label organizations and people as haters or hate groups simply because they disagree. We can have disagreement all day long. Do it respectfully, do it politely. We're not going to necessarily see on the same page. That's fine. But don't put people in harm's way intentionally.
We believe that organizations should be free in this country, just like our founders did, to talk about marriage, the definition of marriage, what the Bible teaches, to share their faith without being lambasted and even subjected to incredible economic and personal ridicule in this country. And this is an opportunity for those that are concerned about many that are taking what we'd call Silicon Valley values or even Hollywood values and forcing them on the country.
It's troubling what's happening with the Southern Poverty Law Center, and the only way to combat that is to get out there and expose those people for who they truly are.
The Southern Poverty Law Center is redefining what hate is. It's doing so first to raise money, and secondly, it's doing it in order to shut down all contrary opinion, which the First Amendment was designed to protect.